Okay, today I'm gonna repair this hole. This was here before we bought the house, and it seemed like it's getting a little bit bigger, so I don't want to get that big where insects or a bird can get in there and try to plant a nest, and it just don't look good. So everything else looks really good. That just sucks. So I'm gonna use some foam with a reusable can, and I got some stucco patch. I've never dealt with stucco ever. I'm gonna try to patch it up first and put some texture to it with a brush, I'm assuming. I don't know how. They did these designs. These look like stamps. Like this was stamped. I'm not sure. I'm gonna try to take a brush, a paintbrush, and mimic that somehow. Just there. So we're gonna patch it up and see how it is. We're gonna spray it with some foam first. As you can see, I got a foam base along this side, and there's another small one. I'll show you guys that right now. There's one here. So I'm gonna fix that one too. Then if all goes well, we got one right there. So I don't have to put no foam there. Got something to work with. There's something there to work with, so I can stucco over it just above the house right there in the patio doors. So I got three. This is a fairly small hole. Got 3 holes to work with. Although I didn't spray much foam in that hole, that foam expands really rapidly. And it's not the one that expands to 1 inch. I got the regular spray foam, but it expands. So I put some tape over, as you see I'm doing right now, just some painter's tape to keep it in the confines of that hole. I wanted to fill that void completely, so I can make sure I got a nice base to work with. And all the excess that puffs out of that tape, I'll just trim it out, and we just have a nice surface to work with. Although I shook the can up here, guys, it wasn't coming out like it should have been, but probably could have shook it some more because it was still kind of liquidy. So let's see what happens to it. It's been about 30 minutes, almost an hour. Well, it's been about almost an hour, guys, and look at it. I guess I put too much, but we're gonna shave that off and make that look nice. This one is okay. Okay, so it's dry still. Beautiful out here. So I'll get a scraper and scrape the excess of this off. Okay guys, we just about ready. Do a little bit more sanding. So 100 grit sandpaper. Do a little bit more sanding. Just got a regular putty knife, 3-inch. Dig in here. It's a flexible one. We're gonna go for it. Guys, I probably could have got even better results probably using the rubber float, and would have gotten some of that texture back if I used a wet sponge towards the end when I got to applying stuff and using the brush. You guys will see that in a second. But overall, it turned out great, and I'll show you guys that as I move along. Although I knew I wasn't going to be able to mimic the designs that was already on the wall, I used this brush, as you guys see I'm doing now, to add something to the fix. I didn't want to just lay on flat, so I used this brush to try to get as much of the design possible back. But this is the part I could have used a wet sponge and went around the perimeter of the hole I fixed, and could have gotten back a lot of those designs around the perimeter of the hole. But overall, it turned out pretty decent. The problem was going to be color matching, and that's what I'm in the process of doing right now, trying to find that tone of gray so I can kind of roll over the parts that I've patched up around the house, the small sections, so it can kind of hide it unless you're really paying attention to it. Just kind of hide the fixes and make everything look nice. Alright guys, it's been about 24 hours since it dried. Looks good. I could have gotten a sponge or used a rubber float to get a little bit better, more consistency. And if I probably use a wet sponge, I could have got some of this design along the perimeter of the patch, the hole. Make it look a little bit more better. So I guess the trick would be matching the colors now. That's probably be the harder part, matching this gray, trying to find this gray. It's like the gray leaning towards the brown family somewhat, but that tone of gray, once I paint over it, it probably will give the resemblance as if you're patching up a hole in the wall with some drywall compound, and you won't notice it unless you really kind of focus on it. Let me show you guys the other ones I've patched up, but not that bad. It dried pretty hard. It dries like a cream off-white color, or the creamish grayish family, like in maybe a light gray. The color of like cement somewhat. So let me show you guys, because the house is a gray. It's a tone of gray, not sure what tone it is. I've got to find out. Go to Home Depot or Menards and get some paint charts and try to match it up as best I can. So here's the other patches. Not bad. It'd definitely be hard for me to match this up because this is probably was a darker color than it is now. And over 20 years since this house been built. This is the side of the house the sun sets to, as you can see it right now. It's about 4 o'clock in the evening now, and that sun is blazing. It's about 88 degrees out here today, so it's super hot. And throughout the years, this has faded. It's just as well as this gray. So I guess, like I said, that'll be the more difficult part, is to match this up. This is also the other hole I fixed. And I think the good thing about this is the holes were kind of expanding. They were a little smaller than it was when we got the property about 4 years ago. So the holes appear to be getting bigger, so I didn't want them to get bigger, so I patched it now before the problem get even worse. So not bad. Just want to find that color tone and match up. There's also another spot I did. Don't look bad. Looks real good. Just gotta kind of, like I said, once again, match that color tone gray up. Overall, this stuff was amazing to work with. I really liked it. Anybody can use it. You got great work time before it hardens. And I'm going to do an update video on this when I match the color or get color similar to the house so you guys can see how it look. I went to Home Depot and got some paint swatches, guys. And I must say it's going to be so tough trying to find out the tone of this gray. I got a lot of swatches and I just was going over them and going through them And I had my daughter come out to help me out, and you guys will see her in a second. Just trying to use some different eyes to kind of get an idea of what tone gray the color of the house is. And I guess the hard part of the difference, or the hard part, is us trying to match some weathered color. And that's what's the hard part about it. Trying to match the tone of the house that's been sitting in the elements for 20 plus years. So I looked in the paint aisle. You can see the paint cans are expensive. These are the spray paint, and Bear had some really nice colors, a lot of different colors. And I seen lunar surface, and I'm like, our house do match the surface of the moon. Like, it looks like the surface of the moon. So I did kind of got two swatches to match our house, and these are the swatches with the next to the lunar surface. And I was trying to just match it to that spray can to save me some money. I don't want to just spend a ton of money on a can of paint and only need a little bit just to cover some small sections. So I went with the lunar surface, and I must say it didn't kind of go well with the tone of the gray of the house. However, it did go well with the other gray, the other tone of the gray of the house. It kind of went well with that when I sprayed it, and I'll show you guys a couple different sections that I sprayed underneath the house so it wouldn't be visible. There's a spot, a little rust spot that won't, I can't get that stain out. I've pressure washed it, I did everything to it, but I kind of go over it with the lunar surface, just spray lightly over it to see if the two tones match. That was the goal, to try to get those tones to match somewhat. And like I said, it's off. It's sort of off from that tone of gray. However, it does go with the gray at the bottom section of the house, more so than the gray tone that the house is made of. So after vigorously shaking the can, I used just a couple light sprays just to see how it would fare with the color tone. And at one point in time, guys, that may have been the color. It may have looked like that at one point in time. And this paint is called lunar surface, and our house is the color tone of like the lunar surface. And at one point in time, it probably did look like that when it was freshly done. So that wasn't gonna work. I did try to cover up a couple spots with it, but let's go over to the spot at the bottom. I'll show you guys how that turned out. First, here's a spot that I fixed on the house, and here's the before and here's the after. After I painted it with the lunar surface, like I said, the colors are off. I just wanted to see how it will look. It's off. It's definitely off. It's probably looked like that once upon a time, but I'm gonna try to find that tone. That's the goal for me right now, find that tone. But now let me show you guys how I painted it towards the bottom section of the house, and it kind of went better than this part. So here's the lower section of our house, which is the other tone of gray. And as you guys can see, I sprayed it with a little lunar surface paint. I lightly sprayed it, and you guys can see it kind of goes better with that gray opposed to the other gray tone that I was trying to match. So here's a distant view of the section I painted, and you can guys see that gray is off from the tone of the house. So I'm still searching to try to find that, and here's the bottom part. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you found it helpful. Subscribe to the channel, guys. I'm gonna find that tone, and I'll share it with you guys. Terrence, I'm out.